Here's how to make a split t-shirt with ruffle sleeves. You'll want to start with two shirts that are the same size, or at least close to the same size, and iron them really well for the best result. I smoothed mine out on a cutting mat and used a ruler to mark where I wanted to split this t-shirt. You can do this with scissors too. Then repeat the same thing on your second t-shirt. You're going to use the top of one and the bottom of another. Set aside those extra pieces, we'll have an option to use those later. Now take your bottom piece and turn it inside out. We're going to want to match them up with the right sides together. Make sure your designs are lined up how you want them, then pin them together. I decided to use these plastic clips so that I wouldn't put a pin through my designs. But if you've just got pins, use those. At this point, you can turn it right side out and look to see if your pattern is lining up how you want it. In my case, it wasn't, so I took the pins off and decided to repin it again. I set my sewing machine to a stretch stitch because this fabric is slightly stretchy and I don't want the seams to rip. That stretch stitch really keeps some flexibility in the seam. Our split tee is looking awesome, and you can definitely stop here if you like. But I decided to use my serger, and I even changed out the thread to match, so please clap. But really, the serger will just make sure that the raw edges will not unravel and last a lot longer. No worries though if you don't have a serger. Then I ironed the shirt so that the seam would sit more flat. But be really careful with the designs on it. I ironed from the inside to make sure I wouldn't melt anything. Again, you can totally stop here if you like your shirt this way. Or you can use those offcuts to make some gathered sleeves. Just trim the sides and top of the pieces. You're really just trying to get something that's about twice as large, at least, compared to the sleeve, so that you have room to gather it. Then repeat with your other offcut from the second t-shirt. I used the sleeve piece that I cut to make sure that they were both the same size. You'll end up with two pieces for each sleeve, a front and a back, one with a design and one just plain. Then line up the back and the front part of your ruffle right sides together. Pin the sides and sew or serge along those edges. Flip your ruffles right side out, matching up the front and back on the long side that you haven't sewn yet. And clip or pin those edges together. We're going to switch our sewing machine to a very long stitch and sew along that top edge. This longer stitch is going to make it a lot easier for us to gather these ruffles. And you don't need to worry about using a stretch stitch here because this isn't actually going to be a seam. You're going to grab just the top thread and pull, moving the fabric away from you. And you'll notice that you'll start to have these little gathers in the fabric. Keep pulling the thread and moving those gathers along across the ruffle sleeve. Once you think you have your ruffle sleeves gathered enough, line them up with your existing sleeve to see if you've got the right fit. You can always gather them a little bit tighter if you need to. Mine looked good, so I went ahead and lined up my ruler to cut off just about 2 inches from my sleeves. You can decide what length you want yours in total. And do the same with your second sleeve. Now take your ruffle and turn it inside out. We want the right side of this ruffle and the right side of the sleeve matched up and pinned together. Then use a stretch stitch again, or just a regular stitch if that's all you've got, and attach that ruffle to the sleeve. I also used a serger to finish the edges. And there you've got it, a split tee with ruffle sleeves. And I used mine to do a Denver Nuggets and Miami Heat combo, but you can make whatever you like.